Yes, hello, good morning. You're watching the Sunday Politics for Yorkshire and Lincolnshire. Coming up today, are we really in danger of running out of gas? Why the recent cold snap means we're more reliant on imported energy.
We need to start producing our own gas in this country, become less reliant on gas from outside the UK.
At the height of last week's big freeze, we were warned the country was running out of gas due to soaring demand. It's prompted industry bosses to seek an urgent meeting with the government to discuss ways of avoiding a repeat. Some say the recent closure of a huge gas storage facility off the Yorkshire coast has left us vulnerable. And others argue the way to avoid relying on imported gas is simple, yet hugely controversial: fracking. When the beast from the east roared across Yorkshire and Lincolnshire, it sent temperatures plummeting and forced many of us to crank up the thermostat.
Gas is very important to me. We need it for hot water and we need it to keep warm. And the weather, with it snowing, £5 a day we use, and we're on benefits, we can't afford that. I'm a single parent. So obviously I've got kids, we need to get showers, we need to get baths, we need to keep warm.
Currently 43% of the UK's gas supply comes from domestic sources and 44% is piped in from overseas, with Norway being the biggest supplier, followed by Russia. 13% arrives on tankers in the form of liquefied natural gas. At the height of last week's cold snap, the National Grid issued a gas deficit warning, saying it didn't have enough gas to meet demand.
You'll be aware there have been question marks about the gas supply over this crucial time. Ben, just bring us up to date on what's being said at the moment.
Yeah, and contrary to what you might read on some of the fronts of the newspapers today, we are not running out of gas as a country. This is what is known as a gas deficit warning, and it's the first time in 8 years that the National Grid has issued one. And it essentially says that they are concerned that supplies might be running low, but we should say domestic customers, you and me at home, turning on our heating, we are the last people that they will cut off. And yesterday they issued the warning. Business industry followed suit, and we've seen that gas supply levels are now back up.
Some say the situation wasn't helped by the closure last year of the UK's largest gas storage facility, known as Rough, off the East Yorkshire coast.
Well, the Rough storage facility contains about 70% of our total gas storage in the UK. With the closure of this facility, and obviously the extreme weather that we saw last week, has had a massive impact on the volatility of wholesale gas prices.
Centrica, the company that owns British Gas, said it was closing the Rough gas storage facility due to safety concerns and because much of the site was coming to the end of its natural life. But industry bosses want assurances from the government that another icy blast won't leave us short.
Supply of gas is the big issue. 84% of our homes use gas for heating, 50% of our electricity comes from gas. We need to start producing our own gas in this country, become less reliant on gas from outside the UK. The UK gas supply is going to become more reliant on imports without the use of shale gas. The government has already given support for shale gas extraction in the UK, and events like last week make the reasons why fairly obvious.
The government insists plans are in place to prevent the country running out of gas, but some say the recent cold weather should act as a wake-up call to the risk of running on empty. Kevin Hollinrake, has the government spectacularly failed to prepare for the real possibility that we could run out of gas?
No, I don't think that's fair at all, but we do need gas and we're ever more reliant on imports. We import around 45% of our gas now. That'll rise to 70% by 2030. 30, we're phasing out coal-fired power stations. Gas will pick up the slack, and also we need to heat our homes. And it's very important for domestic supplies that we do produce our own gas.
But why did ministers allow the closure of the Rough storage facility off the Yorkshire coast? Because that accounted for 70% of our storage facilities. That's left us vulnerable, hasn't it?
But it was coming to the end of its life. It couldn't be operated safely anymore, so that's not right to keep that open on that basis. But I say we do need more gas. Our choice is, do we import it or do we produce it? We have the chance to produce it, and I feel that's a right thing to certainly explore.
Well, Alex Sobel, some in the gas industry will say we have a ready-made domestic source of gas under our feet. It would mean that we wouldn't have to import it from overseas. It's shale gas. Is that the solution?
Well, the reality is that we're not really going to see a major reduction in natural gas till after 2030. That means that we have 12 years for transition. In Leeds is going to be the first hydrogen city in the world. So I think in urban areas, Leeds, Sheffield, Hull, places like that, our transition should be to hydrogen. But also, we need to think about a green economy, green jobs, and we need to think about electricity and renewables. And I think there is a pathway to this without actually having secure energy supply, but without fracking.
Well, Kevin Hollyrick, that's the trouble, isn't it? The shale gas industry talks a good game, but the bottom line is people still don't want fracking in their backyards, do they?
Well, I think renewables is all very well, but renewables only account for about 15% of our energy needs today. That's 85% that it doesn't. So, as coal is being phased out, we do need gas. Now, as I say, we can produce it or we can import it. Fracking is controversial, there's no doubt about it, but I do believe it can be done safely and in a way that doesn't disrupt the landscape. So I am cautiously in favour of that.
Alex Sobel, the GMB union, one of the Labour Party's biggest supporters, wants fracking. By opposing this, aren't you in danger of alienating one of your biggest backers?
Well, I'm a GMB MP, and I think there is a debate. What the GMB wants is energy jobs for UK workers, and so it's about trying to create those jobs. And I think whether those jobs come from a GMB point of view, from hydrogen, from renewables, or from shale gas, is unimportant as long as we have those energy jobs and they're UK jobs. But
by Labour opposing fracking, you're putting yourself in conflict with this huge union, aren't you?
I think it's a debate that we're having internally, and I think it's about creating that transitional pathway, and that's the most important thing, and ensuring that we keep those jobs and that we meet our obligation to the Paris Climate Change Agreement.
What is the situation with the proposed shale gas exploration in your own constituency, Kirby Misperton, which of course reported on the North and been on the national news, because it's been put on hold, hasn't it? So is that the end of fracking in our part of the world?
No, I don't believe so. The Secretary of State wants to make sure everything's in place, everything's right, so the checks and balances, and make sure that the company who is undertaking this exploration, Third Energy, has the financial resilience to do the job right. So that's perfectly sensible. It's the cleanest form of fossil fuels, and we cannot move to renewables tomorrow. We need a sensible energy policy, and it is sensible to produce something you would otherwise import, especially when you import it from places like Qatar and Russia.
But why are you failing to convince voters this is a good idea? Because nobody wants it.
No, I don't accept that. I did a survey of my membership in 2016, 80% were in favour. Clearly we hear a lot from people who are very concerned about this, but I don't accept that everybody's against this at all.
Can the country learn to love fracking?
I don't think so. I think a few hundred Conservative members in Thurston Moulton is not representative of the country.
Interesting debate.